Hey everyone, and welcome back to the AnzenGuard Podcast. I'm Michael Reynolds, and with me as always is the amazing Laura Wilson.
Hi everyone.
Today, we are going deep on something I think we all do, without really thinking about it too much.
Yeah,
Saving passwords in our browsers.
that little button.
That handy little save password button.
Oh, so tempting.
Yeah. So we're going to unpack whether that convenience is worth the security risks and get ready for some really interesting insights, I think.
I think it's true that little button is very tempting. We all want to make our lives easier,
Absolutely.
online especially.
For sure.
But, when it comes to something like passwords,
Yeah.
we need to think carefully about, what we're trading off.
For sure. For sure. And I will admit I am very, very guilty of hitting that save password button.
Me too.
More times than I can count.
Mm.
But the research we did for this episode really made me stop and think, how secure are those passwords really?
That is the question, isn't it? And it's not as straightforward as you might think.
Right.
It's kind of like if you leave your house key under the doormat. A
Right.
convenience, sure, it's easy to get in, but anyone else could too.
That's a good point.
And that's the kind of risk we're talking about here.
So that analogy really hits home for me. I think it's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
So let's break it down a little more, this convenience versus security dilemma.
Right.
We all want things to be easy
Of course.
when we're online. But where do we draw the line
Yeah, where is that line?
when it comes to our digital safety?
It's about finding that right balance.
Yeah.
And, to make smart choices, we need to understand what are the risks.
For sure.
Have you ever stopped to think how your browser actually stores those passwords?
Honestly, no, I really haven't. It's just sort of magically there
Right.
when I need it.
So let's demystify the magic a little.
Okay.
When you save a password in your browser, it's usually stored locally
Oh,
on
yeah.
your device. So like writing it down on a sticky note
Okay, got it.
and sticking it to your computer.
So far, so good.
But
But what's the problem with that?
well, the problem is if someone gets physical access to your device,
Oh.
they might be able to see your passwords.
Yikes. And a lot of us use the same device for, personal stuff
Sure.
and work stuff,
Yeah,
which makes it even riskier.
absolutely. And then it gets even more tricky when you think about cloud synchronization.
Okay.
A lot of browsers will sync your data across multiple devices.
Right.
Which is great for convenience, but that also means your passwords are accessible from anywhere.
Oh.
Potentially if one of your devices is compromised.
So even if my own laptop is secure, but say my phone gets hacked because my data sync,
Yeah.
then my passwords are at risk.
Exactly. It shows how interconnected everything is these days.
It really does. Yeah.
And here's another thing to consider.
Okay.
Browser password managers often lack the kind of security features you'd
Oh.
find in dedicated password management software.
Okay.
They might not have the same level of encryption
Right.
or offer things like multi-factor authentication.
So it's kind of like the difference between storing your valuables in like a basic lockbox
Yeah,
versus a high security vault.
exactly.
The vault is obviously going to be more secure,
Right.
even if it takes a bit more effort to get in.
Exactly. And, speaking of browsers,
Okay.
one thing that really surprised me in doing research for this was how Google Chrome
Yeah.
handles password storage.
Uh-huh.
Did you know it's directly linked to your Google profile?
Wait, really? So all the passwords I've saved in Chrome
Yeah,
are tied to my Google account?
that's right.
Uh-huh.
And that raises some red flags. What happens if your Google account is compromised?
Right.
Then all those passwords are up for grabs. And, your personal Google profile might not have the same level of security as, say, your work accounts.
That's a really good point because I think a lot of us think of our work accounts
Right.
as, the main target.
Yeah.
But our personal accounts
Yeah,
can have just as much valuable information, if not more.
absolutely. It's all interconnected.
Yeah, it really is.
These days, and, speaking of threats, our research also highlighted the danger of malware that's specifically designed to steal
Right.
passwords that are stored in browsers.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that. It's basically like digital pickpocketing.
It is.
These programs that can just sneak in and snatch your
Yeah.
passwords.
Exactly, and they're getting more and more sophisticated all the time.
Right.
They're designed to exploit vulnerabilities, and browser password storage is often a prime target.
And I remember reading a story about a company whose entire VPN network was hacked because an employee had saved their VPN login in their browser.
Wow.
It's just a stark reminder that seemingly small choices can have big consequences.
Absolutely. It's a perfect example of how, one weak link can bring down the whole chain. And it just really underscores why companies need to have clear policies about password security
Yeah.
and provide employees with the tools they need to protect themselves and the company. But, even with the best policies in place, it ultimately comes down to individual responsibility as well.
So what can we do to protect ourselves? I mean, it sounds like browser password managers might not be the safest option. Are we just supposed to memorize dozens of complex passwords?
That's where dedicated password managers come in.
Okay.
They are really built from the ground up with security being the top priority.
So it's not just about convenience. They actually take stronger security measures
Oh, absolutely.
to protect our passwords.
Dedicated password managers use strong encryption to scramble your data,
Oh,
making it virtually unreadable,
got it.
even if someone manages to get into your device.
So even if my laptop was stolen or infected with malware,
Right.
my passwords would still be safe.
That's the idea.
Wow, that's a relief.
Strong encryption is designed to protect your data even in those worst-case scenarios.
Okay.
And a lot of password managers go a step further and offer additional security features like multi-factor authentication.
I've heard of that. Isn't that where you need to enter a code from your phone or your email in addition to your password?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just adds an extra layer of security, making it that much harder for someone to access your accounts,
Right.
even if they do manage to steal your password.
It's like having a double lock on your front door.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And another thing I really struggle with is coming up with unique
I hear you.
and complex passwords.
Yeah.
For every single account, it's exhausting.
It is a common problem, and password managers can help with that too.
Okay.
They can actually generate strong, unique passwords for each of your accounts,
Oh, wow.
taking all the guesswork out of it.
So it's like having a personal password assistant
It is.
that not only stores your password securely,
Right.
but also helps you create super strong ones.
Exactly. Sign me up.
It's a game changer for password security. But even with the best tools in place, it's also essential to follow best practices for password security.
Okay, so let's talk practical tips.
Ugh.
What can our listeners do?
To improve their password security right now, I'm ready to take notes.
All right, well, first and foremost, create strong, unique passwords for every single account you have.
Okay,
And I mean every account.
got it.
From social media and online banking to shopping websites,
Okay.
and even that cat meme forum you mentioned earlier.
Okay, no more reusing passwords.
No more reusing passwords.
Unique passwords all the way.
All the way.
Okay, what else?
Use a password manager to store those passwords securely.
Okay.
We've already talked about the benefits of that, but it's worth repeating.
Yeah, a dedicated password manager's like Fort Knox for our passwords.
Exactly.
Check what else.
Next up, enable two-factor authentication whenever possible.
Two-factor authentication's like the security guard for our accounts.
Yes.
Okay, done.
Make it a habit to change your passwords regularly.
Yeah.
It's a good way to reduce the risk of compromise.
Regularly got it added to the list.
I know it's a pain, but it's worth the effort.
Okay. Anything else?
And finally, be vigilant. Monitor your account activity for any suspicious behavior.
Got it.
A lot of websites and apps will allow you to see recent logins,
Right.
or they'll notify you of unusual activity.
So basically be aware and don't ignore those security notifications.
Exactly.
Got it. It's a lot to remember, but I think it's worth it.
It is, for the peace of mind.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive and taking control of your digital security.
So should we abandon browser password managers completely?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
For some low-risk accounts where security isn't paramount,
Yeah.
the convenience might outweigh the risk.
Okay.
But for anything important, especially accounts with financial or sensitive personal information,
Right.
dedicated password managers are the way to go.
So it's a judgment call based on the account
Yeah,
and the risk involved.
exactly.
Which reminds me, what about autofill settings?
Yes.
Because they're super convenient, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me they're a security risk. Well, you're catching on. Autofill can be super helpful, but it can also be a security risk.
Okay.
Remember that story about the side channel attack on Safari?
Oh, right. That was scary.
The attackers were able to steal login credentials by exploiting the autofill feature.
Right. And it's just another reminder that even those features that are designed to make our lives easier
Right.
can have unintended consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to minimize the risk, it's probably a good idea to disable autofill for sensitive information,
Yeah.
like passwords and credit card details.
Good idea.
Okay, so even if we do use a browser password manager,
Yeah.
tuning off autofill adds another layer of protection.
It does.
It puts us back in control of when and where
Exactly.
our information is shared.
It's all about making informed choices and finding that balance that works for you.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation so far.
It has.
So, the bottom line, I think, is we don't have to ditch browser password managers completely.
Right.
But we should be using them with caution.
Yes.
And awareness.
Yes.
And for those super important accounts,
yes.
Dedicated password managers are the way to go.
I think that's a great summary. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
The best approach is to be aware of the risks, weigh the pros and cons, and make informed decisions based on your own needs.
For sure.
And comfort level.
Absolutely. It's a lot to think about, but it's really important. So I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah, me too. And, we've uncovered some kind of scary stuff about what can happen if someone gets their hands on your passwords.
Right.
But, it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
There are things you can do to protect yourself.
Okay.
It's all about making those informed choices.
Right. So we don't have to bitch the browser password managers completely.
No, not at all.
But we should use them carefully.
With caution.
And for those really important accounts,
yeah,
those dedicated password managers are the way to go.
Exactly. And, even for those less sensitive accounts, turning off that autofill function can give you an extra layer of protection that puts you back in control of when and where your information is shared.
That's a good point. Autofill can be really handy, but it can also open up some security holes.
For sure. And we saw that with the Safari example.
Right, exactly.
You just never know.
So it's all about being aware of those things.
Yeah, just being aware of the potential vulnerabilities and making choices that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and that brings us back to, what's the takeaway here?
Right, yeah.
If you've been just letting your browser remember everything without thinking about it, this should be a bit of a wake-up call.
It should be, think about it. Your passwords are the keys to your digital kingdom.
That's a good way to put it.
Your online banking, your shopping accounts, your social media, even your work email.
It's all protected.
It's all protected by these, strings of letters and numbers.
Right. And as we've learned, leaving those keys under the doormat is asking for trouble.
It is. But the good news is that taking control of your password security doesn't have to be a huge undertaking.
Right.
Small steps can make a big difference.
For sure. For sure. And think about it. You probably wouldn't leave your house unlocked.
No.
Right. So why leave your digital life wide open?
That's a great point.
So as we go about our day, think about this. What is one small change you can make to improve your password security?
Maybe it's choosing a dedicated password manager.
Right.
Or enabling two-factor authentication on a couple of your most important accounts.
Every little bit helps.
It does.
And who knows, that small change could save you a really big headache down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really could. And, it's really about taking those steps to protect ourselves and our digital lives.
Absolutely. And I think this has been a really informative deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground.
I think we have.
But hopefully it's been helpful for everyone listening.
For sure. And, if you're just tuning in and you missed the beginning, we're talking all about password managers.
The good, the bad.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And the ugly.
Of storing your passwords in your browser.
Right. And we've learned that while those browser password managers can be convenient, they might not be the most secure option.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about some of the alternatives like dedicated password managers.
Right. Those offer a much higher level of security.
Absolutely. And, even simple things like enabling two-factor authentication can make a huge difference.
Huge difference.
So if you're not already doing that, that's definitely something to consider.
Absolutely. And, at the end of the day, it's all about taking control of your digital security.
Right.
And making informed choices about how you protect your information.
Absolutely. And, we've given you a lot to think about today.
We have.
But we hope this deep dive has been helpful in empowering you to make those smart choices about your password security.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this has been another great deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on the AnzenGuard Podcast. I'm Michael Reynolds.
And I'm Laura Wilson.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with anyone you know who might need a little password security wake-up call.
Everyone needs it.
Until next time, stay safe online.